Are we live? Okay. It looks like we are officially live. Hello, everybody. My name is Nemuna Ceesay. I am the founder and one of the core collaborators of The Blueprint, a new BIPOC educational organization for BIPOC actors to become multi-hyphenate artists in the field. We just kicked off and launched our organization on Monday, this past Monday, March 1st, with the launch of our website, theblueprintartist.com, as well as our fundraising campaign. So somebody should be dropping the links to those in the YouTube chat. So please do check it out. We're so excited to be offering this incredible programming for you this week and hopefully for the rest of the year, right? Depending on how the fundraising campaign goes, but you know, we're gonna figure it out no matter what. And yesterday we had our first event, which was an all BIPOC meditation circle. And this is our second event, a roundtable discussion with a bunch of incredible BIPOC folks. Myself, a core collaborator, Jessica Coe, and three brilliant BIPOC multi-hyphenate artists, Lauren Modica, Jen Olivares, and Jonathan Moises Olivares. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about what a roundtable is on our end. So if all of y'all are familiar with the Hollywood Reporter roundtables, they're kind of a big deal, right? But they're often very controversial because of their lack of diversity. It's often a bunch of very famous white folks who are nominated for awards. And there's often just a lot of anger and anxiety around the fact that there's like one person of color or zero people of color on that group. So we thought it would be cool at the Blueprint to create our own version of a roundtable discussion where we bring BIPOC folks, BIPOC artists together around a table, or in this case, on this Zoom space, to talk about things that affect us as BIPOC folks in this industry. And so today is our first go ahead at that. So we're just gonna kind of have a discussion today around centering BIPOC folks and BIPOC stories in our curriculum and in our industry. So before we jump into that discussion, I just wanna do a land acknowledgement. This land acknowledgement comes from Tara Moses of Groundwater Arts. She writes, Zoom, the platform that we are using today and many days, is headquartered in what is now called San Jose, California, on the traditional lands of the Ohlone and Tamian peoples. We acknowledge the land Zoom resides on because the work we create together on a digital platform does not exist in an ether, in an imaginary void, but it is made possible because of physical land and the indigenous people who steward it. So thank you so much, Tara Moses, for that incredible land acknowledgement. And now I just want to invite the folks who are a part of this conversation to pop up on the screen here, and we will do some introductions. Yes, hey friends. Awesome. I'm so excited for this, yes. So let's do some intros here. We have our little list of who's going. So I'll just do mine really quickly because since I didn't properly introduce myself. My name is Nemuna Ceesay, she, her, hers. I am an actor, a teacher, an acting coach, and now the founder of The Blueprint. And I'm just super excited to be here with y'all. So I will throw it over to Jen.
Mi mahatam notang Jen Olivares ya kai shuka koktam hashman. Hi everyone, I'm Jen Olivares. I am of the Hashman Nation, one of the new band of Mission Indians of the Deer Clan. I gave the pronouns she, they, though still I am not comfortable with any of that. So I am not sure, but you can call me whatever. I am as we say, multi-hyphenate artist. I am an actor, singer, dancer, choreographer, creative director, writer, and I am also trying to find out the happy medium between all of those things. And I identify as two-spirit.
Thank you, Jen. Jonathan?
Hi, everyone. My name is Jonathan Moises Olivares. I use they, she, and he pronouns, and I'm currently in Chicago. And I am a writer, actor, designer, graphic design, and fashion, and a ton of other things. But those are kind of the big ones. Acting is kind of my main focus. And I do music, so that's great too.
Awesome. Thank you, Jonathan. Lauren? No, yes, Lauren, you're next.
Hello, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much, Nemuna, for having me and the blueprint. My name is Lauren Modica, she, her, hers. I am an actor and writer and performer. I am coming to you from the lands of the Multnomah, Wasco, Cowlitz, Cathlamet, Clackamas, bands of Chinook, Tualatin, Kayapua, Molalla, and many other tribes, land now known as Portland, Oregon. And I am thrilled to be here. So thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. And my core collaborator, Jess.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Coe, she, her, hers. I'm an actor, an artist, a performer, theater maker, educator, writer, and person. And that was awkward. And I'm on the traditional lands of the Chumash and Tongva people, also now known as Los Angeles.
Yes. Oh, you're also amazing. Come on, multi-hyphenates. Yes. Great. So we're just going to chat. We're just going to chat about some stuff. I'm going to throw out some questions and things for us to like think about, places for us to kind of jumpstart the conversation. The first thing I just want to throw out to folks, and again, y'all can just like jump in whenever you feel so moved, is so all of you are involved in the blueprint even before this conversation, right? Jen, Lauren, and Jonathan have all provided video content for us for our fundraising campaign. I don't know if Lauren's is up yet, but it will be soon. And Jess is one of my core collaborators. So what I'm wondering is, why did you say yes? Like when I told you what the blueprint was, what we were trying to do, like why did you decide that you wanted to be a part of this thing that we're creating?
I guess I'll go. I feel like I wanted to be a part of Blueprint before it was Blueprint, before when Nemuna had posted on Facebook like an interest post about what, would people be interested in a BIPOC focused training program. And I immediately I think I probably posted, commented in all caps, like, yes, please let me know when you're going to talk about it. I want to be there. And so, I was part of one of the first discussions, I think, that we had just to talk about what it would be like to have a program that actually, thinks about us and what, how different that would be. And it was with a lot of other, amazing people that are in the arts, that are, administrators, teachers who are actually even not in the arts either. And so it was just a really exciting conversation. And I think, I immediately jumped on that too, because I think it was like Nemuna had just kind of, filled a hole that was missing for so long, that I immediately responded to, because, I'd gone through training programs where I was the only Asian person in the whole program or the year, and having to navigate, that, it took a lot of, emotional and psychological, I don't want to say warfare, but yeah, it kind of felt like warfare, so definitely, and then, some months went by and Nemuna had, really put together a core group of people to kind of establish the foundations of what the blueprint would be. And then she asked me to, come on board at that point in one of the committees. And I immediately, of course, again, said yes. So yeah, that's why I'm here.
I love what Jess just said. And I think to sort of springboard off of that, something that really to me was heartwarming about what the blueprint aims to do is the idea of like, as BIPOC artists, we're used to developing resilience through, as Jess said, sort of like warfare. The idea like you have to go through so much and you have to balance on this very delicate tightrope of like speaking up for yourself. And as I, not to assume, but I'm assuming that we all feel this way, speaking up for who comes after you, right? The traditional idea of like, okay, it's this bad for me, but I don't want it to be as bad as it is right now for someone a year behind me or 10 years behind me. And so the idea of a training program that is not just focused in so beautifully on the specific, unique, multifaceted experience of being a BIPOC artist right now, but the idea of building resilience through support, rather than like, I've just had the worst experience of my life, or I'm so tired of having to have these conversations, or I'm so tired of having to watch my tone, or, make other people feel better about the bad treatment that's happening to me or to my fellow BIPOC artists in the program or the show or the company. The idea that this program is rooted in celebration and joy and healthy resilience building rather than traumatic resilience training was immediately attractive to me. I also think that it's I'm gonna sound like everyone's mom right now, but it's real hip. You guys, like, it's really hip. It's really cool. It's beautifully put together. It's not like, remember like in the back of 17 magazines, there'd be like an ad being like, come to acting school, like it's like $500, come join our program, John Casablanca's acting school, but instead it's like, it's of the now. And it's also, to me, I think it's also for the BIPOC artist of the now and of the future, which is something a lot of other programs are sort of behind the game on, like so it's just exciting and thrilling and seems really healthy.
I will, as they say, piggyback off of that as well, because my inspiration and my initial okay, so 2020 was a year of following that gut. So when I was contacted by Nemuna, my gut said yes, because so much of as we as multi-hyphenate artists have many side hustles, as they say, many of that has been rooted in childcare, child teaching, I've been teaching dance since I was 14 years old. So I have always had this mindset of trying to mentor people younger than me, and being able to be part of a team that is actively creating programming and classes and courses and training for people who are like me, who so desperately needed that. And for the people that I see and the young people that I see and have worked with for many years, it just seemed like a no-brainer, as like, oh, absolutely, this is the path that is needed. It's the path that is so uncommonly, non-traditionally traversed. And to be, especially in this space right now, speaking with artists a few artists that I know and some that I'm really excited to get to know, it just feels like it's in a world of so much bad, there is some beauty, and this is a big expression of that, and a large example of the things that we need to keep facilitating to bring better days for those to come, as they say, 7 generations down the line is what we're talking about and what we're thinking about. So.
I think for me, my huge experience, just like as an actor coming through and like auditioning for tons of programs, was just like facing the reality that I would always hold an identity that wasn't wanted in one of these programs. There's like, if I wasn't like straight presenting, I was too queer, or if I was too dark, or I was too fat, like the rampant fat phobia that's happening in a lot of training programs. And it felt like my resiliency was a currency to these people that I would peddle off as a selling point of like, look what I can do. Like you can like beat me down and I'll be better. Um, and it felt like that's kind of like what my training was just like having to show my scars and be like, I can heal and be just as good. And I think when I was approached with this opportunity, I was just thinking like how incredible it would be without having to preface trauma as sort of my resume when it comes to a space. And because I am good at what I do, but I can't imagine like how much better I would be without having to have navigated all of the trauma that was given to me, and have to wear it as like this badge of like resiliency, as like look at this creature who like grew from suffering. So when I see that like there's a familia, there's a support, there's a group here that we already kind of have a very specific language that we understand, so that when we navigate around each other, we don't have to ask like, are you Meisner or are you Stanislavski? And I'm like, no, I'm a queer person from the South. Like that's my training. And I think like we don't have to compare like these like super problematic and oppressive ideological basis when we can just be like, no, like I had to navigate an entire world that was built against me and survive in that. And that's why I'm an incredible actor, and that's why I'm an incredible artist. And it would be it's really exciting to like have a space where we don't have to spend the first 3 years of any training asking for permission to like just be there and to show up.
Yes. Yeah, I love what y'all are saying so much. And it just so much of it reminds me of like another just like big reason that this space was created is I was just realizing as I was talking to, so a little context is I am an acting coach, but specifically for actors who audition for MFA acting programs. And so I have a lot of conversations with young emerging, many of whom are BIPOC actors, around like what it is that they're looking for from a program. And they want the things that of course they want BIPOC faculty members, more than one. They want work that is decolonized and centers them and their stories. They want to know that they're supported and that there's equity, that they're going to get the resources that they need, whether their white peers are need those things or not, right? And I kept hearing myself over and over again telling them like, yeah, that program doesn't exist, like, but it's okay. Like you're going to learn how to be so strong, and you're going to learn how to fight the system, and that's going to help you so much as you make your way through this industry. And I was like, I can't say this to them anymore. Like that is so unfair. Like they are paying as much, if not more, than their white classmates, and they are getting half the training because they're spending half of their time fighting the system, proving how resilient they are, doing traumatic work that takes a lot of time to like heal from, right? And I was just like, this cannot be the spaces that I as a BIPOC person am telling these students, like, you got to just do it, it'll be good for you. Like that's a lie, you know? And so I just appreciate so much like what y'all are saying, and just know that like so many other people, young, you know, emerging BIPOC artists that will be a part of this program will resonate so much with what you're saying. I think this is a great kind of time to talk about like not just like in training, but just in general, like what does it take to be a BIPOC artist? Like in your own, I guess, experience, or even from like an outside observer watching other BIPOC folks you know and love, like what is it that we really, let's make people understand, like white folks understand watching this, like what does it mean to be a BIPOC artist and what does it take? Take that question and run with it however you want to.
I will start if that's okay. Just because it's a labor of unseen, rewards often, because especially in this time where the conversations that many arts institutions are having is finally even acknowledging BIPOC artists or the white supremacist worlds that they have been operating in. It's a labor of unseen effort and often unrecognized. But what I feel the most it is standing up for things that no one else would, representing your community for your community. Because you have a specific group of people that you are representing and you want to make it better for them down the line, and also knowing your worth and acknowledging in that moment that there are things that are happening that need to be addressed. It's also questioning every move you make and every job that you take as a possibility it might not benefit your community or your people. And it's also standing in solidarity with those who consider themselves BIPOC for something that you might not have the learned experience or cultural knowledge of when they speak as well. And it takes being able to see the walls that have been placed in front of you, either by these institutional blockages or your own lack of titles or respect in theater, TV, academia, wherever it happens to be, and knowing that they are there because of generational and situational lies that you have to actively act to not see. You have to actively believe that you do not see these walls and that you have, like I said in the beginning, your community behind you to represent and to honor.
I think that was beautifully put, Jen. I also think something that's really, I think as BIPOC artists, we're often forced to sacrifice the word artist from our titles. I think that there's this idea of when we walk into a room that is not made up of, that's not a diverse room, let's say. It's like BIPOC, and then everything else that comes after it is sort of secondary and like down on the line. I think that the most successful and intriguing and talented BIPOC artists that I know and have worked with and am friends with and admire and don't know, but have such respect for, always remember that those two, that they're connected, that you don't have to stop identifying as strongly as an artist, even though there are times where I know I felt like, do I have a right to? Am I just here to fill a quota? Am I just here to be the diverse person on this stage in this project? Do I need to define myself more? Do I need to amplify the BIPOC and then like not fight as hard for the artist to be as illuminated? I think that it requires, we've covered resiliency, whether or not that's something that we hold with us as a mark of pride or as a weight that sometimes feels like it can drown us. I think it requires the understanding that we are not a monolith. And by that, I mean that we are all individuals within this. And there are a lot of people who don't want that to be the case. There are a lot of people who want to look at, I mean, we've all had the experience, and I can say this firmly because I've had conversations with both Jess and Nemuna. And I know Jen and Jonathan have probably experienced this as well. Like, when you're working at a company where there is miraculously and beautifully lots of other BIPOC artists, and someone calls you by someone else's name and then insists that you are that performer. And I bring that up because it's the insistence that you are not who you are. That even as you're correcting someone and you're saying, oh no, I'm not, fill in the blank, you know, I'm Lauren and I was in this show. They're like, no, you are not who you are telling me you are. You are instead this person who looks nothing like you, beyond the fact that they are also not fully white. And I'm going to take up your time. And that to me is the complete erasure of our individuality. And so being a BIPOC artist is remembering that you are an individual, that you don't have to be the same kind of performer as your friend or your colleague. You also, like, there's one Viola Davis and she's incredible. And I think that being a BIPOC artist is going into a room where they're like, we're really hoping that you can just pull off a great Viola Davis vibe for us. And remembering that the only vibe that you have to pull off is your own. And I also think it's a lot about, again, sort of related, you get to be a person. You don't have to necessarily, like, we are ambassadors whether or not we like it, whether we like it or not. But you also get to be a person, and you have every right to show that person to the audience and to the world, along with your artistry, along with the fact that you are BIPOC.
So much yes to that. And like, I feel like I'm just going to say like a reiteration of all of these things, but like, it feels like the only way I can describe it is like being a BIPOC artist is like having to constantly be in cognitive dissonance and like knowing your authenticity and then having to juxtapose that with like their idea of what you are. And like the huge part is like, there's a lot of things that we don't get as BIPOC artists, and like the biggest thing is like we don't get the privilege of singularity. I am everyone that comes after me, and I am everyone that's been before me, and I still don't know like whether I'm doing what I'm doing because I want to do it, or if it's because I feel like I have a debt to pay to my parents for their sacrifices for me to be here, and for all of the Black and brown bodies that I like literally am standing on right now, as an artist and as a person. And it's like the beautiful thing is like I have an entire life to kind of to kind of figure that out, but I don't know at this moment like whether my actions are my own, like what my autonomy is. It also means like having to be, you're going to be the best person in the room, and people are still going to explain your art to you. You're going to be the best actor, you're going to be the best writer, and you won't get the parts because someone can imagine your complexion, they can imagine your body, being able to say I love you to another person, and having to listen to people say like your time is coming, like you just have to wait, and this entire idea of paying your dues. And they don't tell you that paying your dues means that your white friends get to be co-stars and guest stars as doctors. Well, you have to be Latin King #1. You have to be Thug #2. You have to speak really badly written scripts that have like broken English that don't make sense, written by white writers. Like paying my dues looks different than someone else paying their dues. And I have to do that with integrity and then have to be thankful for that, which is like kind of like ridiculous. Like, thank you for like writing this awful character that I'm gonna kill. I can like definitely like do it, but like why should I have to? Like why can't I be this beautifully delicate lavender person in the world that speaks beautifully and can dance in like on the beach? Like why do I have to pay my dues and be this stereotype, be this idea of who you need me to be? And I think that's kind of the thing, is like you're constantly having to help people with their needs. You have to help like white creators understand us. And it's like, I don't know who I am, but I know who you think I am is not who I am. And that's a part of it. But also the parts that we get is like instant family and instant community. Um, I always say yes to any BIPOC artist because I know that I'm only here because of them, and I know that like I have to honor like my family, and so it's like anywhere I go, I know that when I see another person of color or a BIPOC person, uh, I'm like we have certain things that we can like relate to, and this person over here whose first gig was playing a residential doctor probably doesn't have the same experience as some of us do. So there's this beautiful community that's kind of woven into it. Though we have to deal with a ton of, I don't know if I can cuss, but a ton of bad things.
Yeah. Oh, you can
Okay,
cuss.
cool.
Yeah.
Well, we have to deal with a lot of shit, and we have to deal with a lot of like just a lot of bullshit, and we get to like make some beautiful things that will never be appreciated. But it doesn't matter because you're like incredible. You're BIPOC, and like, yeah.
I love that. I have to jump in here because I just, one of the things that you said, Jonathan, that I think is my answer to this question is that what it takes to be a BIPOC artist is that we have to be excellent all the time, that we have to be like the best all the time. And like you said, Jonathan, it doesn't mean that we're gonna get the job, but we always have to be like on point. And it's exhausting and it's not realistic. And like I think of all these, like it's true in every part of the industry, but like I think of like Hollywood directors say, like if a BIPOC artist, like their first film out has a flop, like, or not even a flop, it's just like not like the best thing ever, like they'll never work again, versus like white male directors have flops all the time and then they're directing the next like Marvel movie, you know what I mean? And so I feel like I don't remember who said this, and I say this all the time, so I need to really dig for who said this, but I can't wait for the day when we're allowed to be like mediocre. You know what I mean? Like when we're allowed to just like be like, that wasn't your best, but like give it another try. You'll be great next time. And we can be like, yeah, you're right. This isn't going to ruin my entire career that this was a flop. Right. And so that's what I just like, even with the blueprint, like even thinking of the creation of this, like I'm so stressed every single day because I'm like, this has to be excellent. Like this has to be like the best thing ever, because otherwise like no one is going to pay any attention to it. And it's already hard to get through the door, right? It's hard to get people to care about something like this, even if it's excellent. They're like, this has nothing to do with me. So why should I answer your email, or why should I, like write about this? And so yeah, that's like my number one. I can't wait for the day when I can just like relax and be like, this isn't perfect, but like that's okay. I'm gonna put it out into the world anyway.
Nemuna.
Sorry. Oh, okay. I just want to piggyback onto that too, because we're talking about being multi-hyphenate in terms of artistry, but we're also, as BIPOC artists, having to be multi-hyphenate just in life, in the rooms that we're in the, as not just being hired to be the actor, but also to be the ED&I educator, to be the marketing director, to make sure that the branding isn't racist, which has happened a lot. I've been in those situations, and or having to, be the person to reach out to the community that they want to reach out to, but that's not part of my job description, or that's not what I'm being paid for. Or if you want me to do that, pay me that, and so that's, as like, what Lauren was saying, that we can't just be an artist. We also have to be the BIPOC artist who also, is fulfilling all the roles for the theater or, the production that we're hired to be a part of, and also to represent our community, which, is a big responsibility. And, I'm not perfect at it, but I feel that pressure with every job that I take, and yeah, sometimes I just want to be able to relax and in the room, or just on stage and just be myself. And there have been a few rare moments when that's happened. And, that's actually happened because it was led by a BIPOC director, or someone in charge, who was like, I got it, don't worry about it, you know? And so I just feel like to be what it takes to be a BIPOC artist, I mean, it takes a lot of fucking guts and like tenacity and a sense of fearlessness. I mean, you know, to be able to be like a young Asian girl in Philly and somehow she thinks that she could be in the arts or she could be an actor and actually make a living at it when she hasn't seen anybody doing that in her life. Or the one person that she saw on TV was like on MASH as a Korean refugee, you know, or Margaret Cho, who I love. But, you know, it's like very, very sparse representation, yet we're, you know, as artists, we became artists in spite of the fact that we have all these odds stacked against us and everyone telling us, you know, implicitly or outright that, you know, we're not going to make it because there's no space for us. There's no seat at the table for us. So why would you think that you could, you know, succeed at this, you know? So.
It's so interesting because just hearing again this like really beautiful experience of being in conversation with other BIPOC artists, of like not just going like, huh, that sounds familiar, but being like, yes, I know that in my soul. I know that, you know, like I've stayed up over that, I've cried over that. You know, I think the best work comes from when you feel able to feel gutsy about it. And for me, gutsiness comes from joy and excitement and like the challenge of like, let's really get into this and like tear it apart. But we, as was so beautifully put, we don't, every chance is our first chance. I don't know any BIPOC artist who does not look at an opportunity and go, this is it. Like, even if there are theaters that I've performed at numerous times, numerous shows, and every single performance, I am incredibly aware that all it takes is one. Like one day where I roll up and I'm like, I'm tired, I don't want to be here, I'm sad, I'm going through a breakup, someone I love just died, you know, it was a bad day, you know, I hurt somehow, like my joints or whatever, you know, just like normal stuff. Like I didn't take my glucosamine chondroitin, and now I'm stiff. But it's like we don't get that. I had an experience on a show, and I'm not gonna name it because it was an enlightening experience for me and showed me that I'm probably not as patient as I would like to imagine that I am. And it was filled with a lot of artists who are not BIPOC. And it enraged me some days to hear them before we went on stage sort of just be like, I just don't want to, you know, like, I don't want to, like, oh God, I'm mad at my wig, or I'm sad, or I'm mad that I don't have the part that I really wanted. These are all normal human emotions for any performer. Like, I am not above those thoughts. I have certainly hated my wig, but I have never felt like I am allowed to go on stage and just sort of be like, you know, about it. Like, you still have to show up at going like 150 miles per hour. And I think that leads to a lot of emotional burnout for BIPOC artists. I think that no one talks about that part, right? Where you reach the point where you go, I can barely participate in my life, let alone think about going on stage and telling this story, that, as Jonathan pointed out, we're usually casting these highly traumatic tales. Highly traumatic, as Nemuna said, roles and stories that take hours, if not days, to recover from, and yet we're doing them sometimes 8-9 times a week, and we're doing them in an environment that's unhealthy for us at the best of times and horrifying at the worst of times, truly damaging. And yet we get up each day and we do it because professionalism is embedded in us by the training, by the institutions. And yet, whenever I hear the word unprofessional being thrown around, it's only ever attached to a BIPOC actor. I've never been in a professional setting where someone has said that, you know, cis white male is too much. Like, we can't have this energy in the cat. Like, it never happens. But anytime that you hear that, or like, oh, I just don't know if there's enough discipline, I don't know if there's enough, whatever, it's always attached to a BIPOC performer. And usually I'm like, because why? And it's interesting to me that that comes up when we, even though I said that we're not a monolith, are just people in the room, where we're not there ready to answer a question or excuse a racist remark, or help someone through something that they really can't get their mind around, that we're just being people. And I think that, all of that, everything we've discussed leading to the burnout, is the other side of like what it takes to be a BIPOC actor.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I'm curious then if y'all, because obviously we have all been in plenty of spaces where we feel like this ain't it. I'm triggered. I'm traumatized now for the rest of my life. Like that's normal, unfortunately. I'm wondering though if any of you have been in a space where you were like, wow, I feel like truly safe in this space as a BIPOC artist. And if that is true, like what was that experience like for you?
I know that logistically, I've never been in a safe space in like rehearsal or performance because I've never been in like an all BIPOC ensemble. Because those moments, like Lauren was pointing out, like, and we can't be not excellent. So I've never been able to go to a rehearsal to rehearse. It's always felt like a performance. I've always like had to rehearse alone in the privacy of my own home because I like show up off book and like have all my beats set because I can't stumble in front of anyone, particularly white people. So it's never felt safe. But the moments that I feel the safest are uh, the private moments with like my BIPOC friends who are also performers. Whenever we are helping each other like in the dressing room by ourselves, like I have an audition coming up, can you like help me with this monologue, or I have this scene that we can read through, or even reading some of their own work. That was like the most like formative, and like I learned so much more out of those experiences in dressing rooms, in someone's apartment, on the way to get like some burgers at 2 a.m. after like a long show. Like those moments, like the familial community moments, were the most invigorating for every part of me, but particularly my artistic soul. And like, yeah, so it's like becoming more human is what made me feel a better artist, and I was only able to do that without having to think about the white gaze, without having someone or someone like have to be having the pressure of having to speak for my people, or having the pressure to be excellent, to prove that I have the worth to even speak these words that were written for people who were intended for to be performed by people who would never look like me. So it's like I have to do Shakespeare beautifully, even though he never imagined someone looking like me would ever perform these things. And then I have to like give reverence to the director. Um, so those moments never safe, but like when I get to like shoot shit and talk shit like after and during, like when we're like walking to the another building, like those are the moments that I felt the safest and the most invigorating and the most building.
I guess for me, I agree with everything Jonathan said, because I do feel like, even when you're in a all BIPOC cast, there's never a moment where you feel like, yeah, now I can just do whatever I want, no pressure, because, I've been in casts where, like, for instance, at OSF, I was in Hannah and the Dread Gazebo, which was a Korean American play written by a Korean American playwright with like an all Asian American cast with an Asian American director. And honestly, it was the most amazing experience. And, I kind of hold that up as like the gold standard. And, but even with that, it had enormous pressure to get the story right, and to, make sure that, especially the space that we were in, which mostly white older audiences were going to watch it. And so it was a lot of, you know, I put it on myself too, you know, that pressure of like, you know, are these audiences going to get it? Like we're not putting subtitles for the Korean. They're just going to have to figure it out. But, you know, what was great is that we all agreed, and Jie Park, the playwright, and Chae Yu, the director, were like, who cares if they don't understand? This is not their story. This is our story. And this is your story. And the story of your parents, the story of, you know, immigrants. And, you know, we get to put this in front of people who don't see that, who don't see these people in their everyday lives. And, you know, and that was so rewarding. And, you know, I think the pressure of having to represent that was kind of alleviated because I trusted in the leadership that was in the room. And that, I mean, if you know Chae Yu, you know he got it covered. I mean, he's a fighter, you know, and he has, you know, experience dealing with whatever bullshit comes around, you know, and he knows how to protect his artists in a great way. And that is really rare. I mean, when I encountered that, I thought it was a unicorn. I was like, who are you? You know, where have you been? Or where are you? Can you be everywhere? You know, and so it's, I think, and I've been in other great rooms too, but I would say that probably is the singular moment when I kind of felt, I guess, you know, for lack of a better word, safe, you know, in the room to create and to just be an artist, even though it did have the additional pressures of having to represent well. But yeah, I mean, again, you know, going back to what I said, it really had to do with who was leading the room, who set the tone of the room, you know.
Go, Jen. I haven't heard from you in a minute.
Well, okay. I am forever trying to be, well, are you sure, Lauren? Okay. So what I think is really challenging about being a BIPOC artist is that there are so many things that word encapsulates. And the I is often so lumped in with it that we, especially in these spaces that are, I'm assuming that we're all talking about productions that we've done on Turtle Island, that we've done in North America, what is now North America. But it's another challenge to be an Indigenous or Native. I identify as American Indian, Native American. They have a lot of different specificities with each term, but being the fact that creating Native theater now is something that is, I guess, a priority for a lot of these predominantly white institutions. The tendency to throw us into a monolith of Native peoples, pan-Indianism, is it's more often happening than not. So to reflect what Jonathan said, I have never felt safe in a space as a Native artist, because often I am being cast and thrown in as one of the only or the only Native artist, and then asking to speak about a culture or a people that I don't represent. We brought in a Native girl because we're doing a show in New York and we want to talk about Lenape people. I'm grateful for the work, but also it's incredibly the pressure of that, and also the like guilt that this should maybe actually go to someone that is properly Lenape, has made me as an artist and a creator feel suffering from imposter syndrome at almost every turn. And I yearn for the day that I could be in a completely collaborative Native space, so no one ever has to feel that way. And the budget is unlimited, and we can bring in people whose stories we're telling, and we don't have it's an uphill battle, but I feel that because the conversation that we're having right now is about American art, it's increasingly and even more frustrating being an Indigenous artist in the word BIPOC, because it feels like the box ticking is the most important, it is the top priority for those who have brought us in the room. And there's no acknowledgement of the land past a land acknowledgement after that. So
thank you for that, Jen. It makes me think too about just this idea of, like what Lauren said earlier, that like we are not a monolith, right? Like none of us, no matter how we identify, in which culture, which race, with which ethnicity. I always think of when there's like no work for you and how you identify, like I feel like there's so much pressure to then create that work, right? Or be like, I have to take up the mantle of making this work available for the world because no one else is doing it, and they're just lumping me and my peoples into this thing that is not actually our life and our story. And I often feel that that's incredible and beautiful if people are like, yeah, let's create our own work. I think that's incredible, and I love that people do that. But I also just feel like it shouldn't be like white creators don't have to make their own work. They get to choose if that's the thing that they want to do, and that's like the thing that they decide to do, that like, great, let's do that. But they don't have to. And I feel like we have to, we're like, they're like, you're not going to get work unless you create your own work. And we shouldn't be forced to do something that we don't want to do or don't know how to do, or like just aren't inspired to do, right? Like that's just like a whole other thing that I kind of think about around like what Jen is saying and what we're all saying around, like I find myself in these works that actually are not about me, and then there's all this pressure to like fit into this box that shouldn't exist in the first place.
Nemuna, that's so great, because the thing that like I think so often it's this like, it's not even a like, have you like, what do you like to do, you know, if you're a multi-hyphenate artist, like what is the, list them out, like what do you want to do? It's like, you should write a play for yourself about being you, but like maybe change the name, and I bet you can get a lot of grants. And you're like, I don't, you know, like my life is going to bore you. Like my life, if I were to write a play about my life, it would just read as like a weird mashup of Grey's Anatomy without the medical expertise, and the like the like outfit montage in Clueless. It wouldn't be this like gripping traumatic tale that I feel like so many people are really hoping that all BIPOC artists, number one, have, you know, because I think we're assumed to be without privilege just across the board, when in reality, we each have a certain amount of privilege. And then number two, that we're willing to like drag out and sort of throw onto the stage. And something that just kept percolating in my mind during this discussion was the idea of like, we've each mentioned the idea of like, what does it feel like to be in a room that is really hard to detach yourself from at the end of the day? What does it feel like to be in a show that is impossible to rid yourself of? And I feel like one of the things that's often overlooked is like, BIPOC artists get to have standards. We get to read something and we get to say, I don't think this is good enough. You know, I don't like this. This actually isn't great work. I don't want to be a part of this, rather than this idea of like, but it's BIPOC, you know, like it's BIPOC adjacent, it's BIPOC related you're at least BIPOC adjacent, so it should be a match made in heaven. Whereas, you know, as Jen's saying, like, don't pick one of us to represent all of us, and then also don't be like, please, you know, grovel at our feet in gratitude for the fact that we're asking you to do this impossible task. Yeah, that just popped in my head.
Well, that makes me think, like, because the next question I have for y'all is like, how do you celebrate your community, right? How do you give back to your community? And I guess I'm curious as to like the answer to that question, with obviously probably part of that is like creation of things, but is there a way to, like, you know, celebrate your community and give back to your community if you are not somebody who feels like, I'm going to go write a play for my community right now? You know what I mean? Like, how do you all personally kind of think about that or do that in your own lives and careers?
So I think I definitely celebrate my community by celebrating me. I think like and not to like sound like a narcissist or like disclaimer or anything, but like just to like I hold so many different things, so many different stories that no one else does. And my story as a Latina, queer, genderqueer person isn't a universal story for anyone. It's just my universal story. So I think that to benefit my community is just to speak authentically for me, whether that means being joyous, whether that means being sloppy, whether that means being mean, whether that means like having no tact and calling someone ugly when they need to be called ugly. Like it's like just like being able to embody authenticity completely and just like honor that. And I think like the honoring of me is an honoring of my community. And to kind of alleviate the pressure that I have to speak for anyone, that I have to represent for anyone. Because the thing is, like, whether I choose to embody that or not, it's already put on me. Whether I like it or not, everything I do will be seen as someone with this specific complexion, with this specific tone of voice, with this specific aesthetic. That's how we all talk. That's how we all speak. This is how we all act. So that's too much pressure. And I'm a Pisces and I don't deal with that pressure that well. So I kind of alleviate myself of that and just like, I give reverence to me and like trust that like, and I always do that with humility because I understand that like, I'm going to be completely oblivious to so much suffering around me because I don't hold a lot of the different identities around me. But I have to like give reverence where reverence is due and celebrate me and honor my journey. Because that's all I should be doing. And the more I let white folks dictate what I should be doing, the less I'd be honoring my community. Which is kind of, yeah. So by being narcissistic and vain and thinking I'm pretty and calling people ugly is how I celebrate my community.
That's amazing. Oh, kind of threw me off, but amazing. Absolutely amazing. Because that's also true. Staying true to your individuality is essential in celebrating your community because at the end of the day, a lot of the time, especially in this world we're in now, we are our community and we have to be there for ourselves before most anyone else. As an artist and as a community member, I'm in the world of hopefully producing something that is actually going to tell a story, but also because within the community that I come from, showing up is so important, and dedicating yourself to the people who are your family and extended family. It's been a weird year, but I celebrate my community by doing everything that I can with my ancestors in mind. I mean, this old saying, you are your ancestors' wildest dreams. I mean, quite literally right now, yes, I'm talking to a screen to fellow BIPOC artists who I wouldn't be able to talk to. So yes, my ancestors' wildest dreams. But I also celebrate them by doing things like learning my language and using every opportunity that I can to dispel the myths that have been told about my community. And that often makes me the confrontational person in the room, or the person, it's seen as confrontational. Let's just say that. I'm stating facts, but it's interpreted as confrontation because, well, settler colonialism is a dangerous disease that permeates every aspect of American society. So by just me acknowledging that, there was somebody here before, or how old was that family's farm? That kind of thing seems confrontational. And I think that even though it's a different word that starts with C, it's still celebrating because I am bringing voice to those, and I'm bringing awareness and telling the stories of those who quite literally cannot speak for themselves right now.
I'm gonna jump on that board real quick. Yeah, I the thing that came to mind for me is I spent a lot of my life. I grew up in very white communities, like very white schools, like, and I spent a lot of my time pushing away the Black African side of me in fear and in like not understanding like how I fit into it, because everybody that I was surrounded by most days was white people. So I was trying to assimilate, right? And what I have been intentionally doing over the last few years since I graduated grad school, really, so not super long time, is going to therapy and like really trying to dive into what it is that held me back for so long in claiming my identity and my bloodline and my ancestors, and embracing them and embracing that side of me, asking my dad questions about his life and my great grandmother that I was named after, and going to visit my uncles in North Carolina who are Gambian, like just like really intentionally being like, I am going to understand my people and where I fit into the story of my people in order to be able to show up fully for work like this, right? Because for a long time, I didn't feel comfortable in spaces like this because I was like totally blocking myself from acknowledging that this is my identity. And so I think it's tied, I think, to both what Jonathan and Jen said around like embracing who you are, and not just who you are in your authenticity now, but also your ancestors and who has brought you here. Because I don't think we can show up fully for the next generation until we understand where we've come from and where we are right now.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like when I was thinking about this question, I was like, oh gosh, I'm not doing enough for my community. What am I doing? And, that's maybe the Asian American side of me, putting too much pressure on myself. So I'm representing in that way, I guess. But, I think, what Jen and Nemuna and John were saying, like, it's so beautiful because, I was trying to think about, okay, well, who is my community? And it's a lot of different, I have a lot of different communities that I can, claim or find inspiration from. And, I think, whether it's being Korean or Korean American, because I think that's a third culture, or, Asian American, which is another thing in itself, to my own family. And, like Jen was saying, like being able to communicate with my family in Korea and, trying to get better in my Korean to hold on to that, because I think a lot of our culture can be tied to language and how we communicate. And then also just food. I mean, I feel like I'm doing things for my community when I'm learning how to make Korean food, and, and also when I have the ability to share that food and traditions with people. Like this is part of why I miss being in, the rehearsal room, where I can like bring stuff for Lunar New Year, and be like, and explain, what it is. And, explain what I made and all that stuff. And so I feel like that is something, you know, in terms of how to, you know, give to your community and to, you know, celebrate your community is by sharing it with others, you know, and sharing it with other communities and other cultures. And I think that's a big reason why we're here today, you know, and why, you know, why we're doing what we're doing, and with what the Blueprint is doing, you know, and just trying to share ourselves with each other, you know, so that then your neighbor is not as scary or foreign to you. You're like, oh yeah, they're like me too, but they have these beautiful traditions and different food and cultures, and I want to learn about that too, you know.
I love everything that was said, and to me, it just comes back to the idea of health, and not necessarily the Western idea of what health is, like the idea of like, which I love. I love a yoga session. I love, you know, like with my water bottle and just like hanging out, and you know, Americanized yoga, I should say, like the Western ideal of what yoga is. Um, but I think finding what it is for you that makes you feel like your healthiest self, both because we're put into situations that are often unhealthy for us, and also because I feel like that is something that I feel should be modeled for performers and actors across the board, but especially anyone who's not um, the expected norm. And for me, that takes shape in a lot of ways, not just personal practices. Big ups to therapy, as Nemuna pointed out, in whatever form that takes on for you. But also the idea of, I had an experience where I was playing a romantic lead, and I have achondroplastic dwarfism as well as being BIPOC, so I was definitely not who anyone expected to be in that role. And what ended up happening is that it was a Jane Austen inspired show, is that we had BIPOC Jane Austen fans coming, and they were thrilled. We had little girls who also had dwarfism showing up and being in the audience, and they were thrilled. And to me, that was so healthy. Like, not for me, like, look at me, I'm doing the big work, but the idea of like, of this is healthy in this like beautiful circuit. And I think that as BIPOC artists, when we find our way into whatever circuit that is, where it feels less like this jagged line that we keep sort of falling, you know, and impaling ourselves on, but that we're finding this beautiful flow between us and our communities and the larger community, whether that's the theater community or the audience, is what's healthiest, as well as like boundaries, uh, boundaries, standards, and health. That's the BIPOC artist motto.
I love that. And I just want to touch on like two of the things that y'all said that were really is like a huge part of what we're doing at the Blueprint. Is one of those things is mental health. Like, it's so important to me that we are like prioritizing keeping us healthy in all of the ways, that all of the things that word means, like you're saying, Lauren, and also to what Jess said around bringing our communities together, right? Because like each of us on this call have different communities. And what I found being a professional working actor, BIPOC actor, is that those communities are so separate. Like, there's an Asian American theater community in New York, but they don't really like, you know, mix or mingle with the Black theater community in New York. And there's also like there's a lot of not inclusivity, exclusivity is the word I'm looking for, like like elitism and exclusiveness around like how you get into those communities. And what we're trying to do at the Blueprint is like break those things down, right? Like what Jen said earlier about walls, and like what Lauren just said about like boundaries, like the bad sort of boundaries of like, we need to like come together and like bring young artists together who are learning together, bring working artists from the communities into our spaces to teach and mentor and collaborate with those young artists, so that when they come out into the world, eventually we are all learning and sharing food and doing all of those things together, right? So I just love what y'all are saying so much, and it just makes me think like, oh great, like we're on the right track, right, in terms of the way that we've been thinking about this program. I want to like round us out because I know we're a little over an hour, but if y'all just have any quick thoughts, like a sentence or something for young emerging BIPOC artists who want to do what you want to do, like what is just like a word of advice or something that you have for them?
Know that you are allowed to curate your career. There are going to be a lot of people who tell you who you should be, what parts of yourself you should put forth. And a lot of that will come with good intentions. And the person who knows where it is that you want to end up is you. And start practicing that early on. You know, be polite, be, you know, respectful is such a double-edged sword of a word, but also know that at the end of the day, you can discard anything that doesn't fit with your true north. And yeah. And also know that it's okay to stop, which Nemuna, I don't mean to like say, I know that this is like for a training program, but I think that we're now at a point where it's okay to be a multi-hyphenate artist, and that's beautiful. But at any time, if you need to take a break or you want to pivot or you want to add something on and shine the light on that for a minute and let something else simmer on the back burner, that's okay. It doesn't dilute anything about who you are or who you are becoming.
I think my only like kind of wise words, if I can even call myself wise, is there's so much power in telling someone to fuck off, because we are living in a white, patriarchal, fat-phobic, colonized world. So you will never be the ideal period of anything. So fuck it. Like your only job and responsibility is to be authentically you. And at the end of the day, you being you will inspire someone and that will change their world. It won't change the world. That's not our responsibility. But you can be very fortunate to just help someone. You can inspire someone to wake up the next day. And that's kind of the only thing that we can ask ourselves, is to hope that your authenticity will open up someone else's authenticity, and just tell people to fuck off, because I mean, some people need to hear it. Some people have never heard it. Some people will never hear it. And there's so much beauty in just being able to like get out of here.
There are blocks in front of you. It's these walls again. I'm talking about these walls again. And they seem insurmountable. They seem, I need an MFA. I need a thesis on whatever I'm writing my play about, or I need this, or I need money, or I need this. Do not let these institutional and colonial benchmarks and markers in that we see when we revere someone's career or we're inspired by someone's, don't compare yourself to those, and don't think that you need those to be able to achieve what they have achieved, because a lot of that is divided by access and funds and whatever all of those things mean to you that are in this moment you see as something that you need to have to get there. We are artists, and you are an artist if you just woke up and had an original thought today. We are all artists. We are all creative. And just because you don't have a commission or a grant or a scholarship or even an admission into anywhere does not mean that you are not still that. And don't let these benchmarks that are put in place to keep people out, keep you out, because your words and your voice is needed.
My God, I feel like you're talking to me. That's your, I mean, all of that. And I think my take on that too is, don't be afraid to advocate for yourself. And, I think I wrote this for my core collaborator profile, but, it's true. I think a lot of times we're afraid to be a problem, to be, you know, deemed difficult. And, you know, as long as you're professional and, you know, but you state clearly what you need and what you deserve. And the worst that can happen is that you're told no. But at the very least, you just have to try it. And I think that's the main thing, is that you just have to take the leap, just keep going. Even just, you know, yeah, like all of us are saying, like, if you just wake up the next day and keep doing what you're doing, that makes all the difference, because one day someone will see you who needs that inspiration, who's never seen anyone that looks like them, but then sees you and finds that inspiration. I mean, that's everything, you know, but all it takes is just to take that one step forward. And no matter what the obstacles are, no matter if you feel like no one else like you has ever broken through, you're never going to know until you try.
Beautiful, friends. Thank you for this incredible conversation. Like, I could talk to you for 4 more hours. Just thank you for being here. And yeah, I like literally have no words. I'm very touched, because we've been planning this thing for a really long time, and just to see it really in front of my eyes is kind of surreal. So I just thank you for being a part of this in all the ways in which you have already been a part of this. I love you all so much. To anybody who's watching this in real time and or this week, please check out our website, theblueprintartist.com, and go to the fundraising tab and see what other amazing events that we have coming up. Tomorrow night is an all BIPOC yoga circle. Y'all should come to, or yoga, not yoga circle. There was a meditation circle. We're having a yoga class for all BIPOC folks tomorrow night. And then on Friday, there's a clubhouse chat with my other core collaborators, many of them. And Saturday we're partying. So that'll be fun too. We got a DJ. So just come through, y'all. It's gonna be really fun. I just love y'all. Thank you. Thank you for this amazing conversation. You're all the best. Now let me figure out if I know how to end this stream. Bye, friends.